Hey, Freedom Prayer Team, it's Tuesday Tips. Woohoo! Excited to get to our tip, but first, I just wanted to mention to you that we have chosen a date for the picnic, and that will be Sunday, August 4th, 1 o'clock p.m. at Britt and Tim's house. And you will find in the email here an RSVP link. All you need to do is click on that, put your name and a yes or a no as to whether you're coming so we know how much food to prepare. So, okay, let's move on to the tips today. So what we're going to talk about is what it looks like for each roll around the table, and then what does your pre-prayer time preparation look like. Okay, so around the table, chair number one, remember, is the person who is sort of leading everything in the prayer time. This person has the sense of what road they're going down, what pieces come first, what happens last, and the whole process is up to them. This is really important, and we've already talked about that, those pieces of connection and repeat after me prayers and just the kingdom business. You guys got that so far. I'll give additional tips on that at some point. I wanted to hone in on something today though, and this is particularly with folks who seem to have a need for another session. So if you sense that lots of stuff really happened in your prayer time, and you couldn't get to all of it, give yourself a hand, because we are not supposed to be able to get to every person's issue, all of their issues in one prayer time. That would be really hard for anyone to deal with, and unlikely that they could process that much at one time. Also, it's just exhausting. So you have to trust that the Lord is going to bring to the table the very first things that are blocking the person, the most important things. And you might take a circuitous route to get to that. Now, you may take route A or B first and come back around. That's fine. There really isn't a wrong way in that. But what you should not try to do is chase down every single thing. Just because they might mention that they had a difficult time with someone does not mean they have to do forgiveness that night. And just because you sense a wounding, it doesn't mean that you naturally run to forgiveness. You might need to deal with an ungodly belief that's actually the place where they're stuck, more than the forgiveness. So this is more discernment, more asking the Lord. But here's what I really wanted to say. Invite them back to another prayer session. Anybody can do this, but chair one specifically. If they forget, chair two or three jump in. But you can invite anybody to say, let's walk this out for 3 to 4 weeks, and then sign up for another prayer time, because we'd love to do a little bit of additional work if you feel that's what God has for you. It's not a blanket invitation to everyone. I mean, you can, but it really should be said for the people who you just know there's a lot more there. And remind them that when they sign up, they can actually request either the same chair one or somebody from that team. We probably can't reproduce the whole team, but it's good to have some continuity there, especially in chair one and even maybe chair two. So I'm just saying, let them know, hey, come on back. But we need you to take some time to walk out the things that God put on the table today. Okay, so chair two. This is basically praying, listening, getting that overview of the whole prayer time. You're probably not going to be trying to help out with every detail of the kingdom business, unless a chair one is forgetting a huge piece of it. You're probably going to be more likely helping them with, number one, if they get stuck, but also number two, if you're discerning a place that hasn't been brought up. You can write that on a card. It's super helpful to write it in the form of a question. That way the person doesn't have to process through what to do with that piece of information. So it would be great if you could send that to them, but please remember this. It is always up to the person in chair one whether or not they discern to use that or not. And so no picking up offense, no feeling bad about that. If their discernment isn't taking them in that direction, then that might be a place for you to hold. Keep it for the scoot step and speak it over them if you feel led at that time. Chair ones have full discretion. So if you're a chair two, you should not be jumping into a prayer time to share what you think. The only time that's like, these aren't hard and fast, right? We have a little bit of latitude, especially in the early stages as we're growing. But typically, unless that's been discussed ahead of time, and definitely not unless the chair one invites you to, because sometimes you'll write out something on a card and the chair one doesn't totally understand it, or you don't have enough words to explain what you mean, and they might ask you to jump in if you feel confident in that, or if they feel confident but aren't assured of the approach. So the key here is chair twos. You're not going to just talk out in the middle of a prayer time and jump in and take over. This is a chair one job. So you submit any thoughts that you might have, and then you submit to their discernment. In chair ones, you need to honor what the chair twos are saying to you. So take it into counsel, and sometimes you'll just keep it and hold it for later. Sometimes you're going there and it's a confirmation. But if you find yourself dismissing your chair two because you hadn't thought of that, that's probably a heart posture maybe to look at, or just you're not realizing, like, I do need to take into account what someone else is seeing, and I might have a blind spot somewhere. So that's chair one and chair two. And then chair three, this is taking notes. You're going to pray as much as you can. Oh, by the way, chair two, you're interceding hard. Chair three, sometimes it's a little harder to intercede much when you're trying to pay attention to all the notes. But for the notes, just want you to remember, this will vary a bit by each person's taking notes. Some are super detailed, some are a little less, but you need to capture certain things. The reason that they came in, but where you actually went when Jesus came into the picture and directed the path. You want to definitely put the connection in. The beginning connection, and then as you keep going back to connection, does it develop in any way? So any way that changes, you want to definitely make sure that you connect, or you capture that as well. And every piece of the fruit loop you want to capture. These are the big steps, and you want to lean heavily into the scoot steps for sure. We need to help them figure out how to walk this thing out. So chair three, send them within 2 days. If you're retyping things, you need to send it within 2 days. That's just honoring. So please try to do that. Chair three, you can also send notes, obviously less frequently. Oh, and but feel free to send them. So back to chair two for a second. As far as the amount of notes, this if you find yourself sending a note every couple of minutes, that's too many. I would say anywhere from 4 to 8 notes a prayer session is plenty. If you find yourself not sending any notes, that's not really helpful to your chair one. So even if it's just a note that you're sensing strongly, that may be a confirmation to them because they're already going there. That's helpful to a chair one, because it's like, okay, they're seeing the same thing. I'm going in the right direction. So there needs to be some entering in on your part. I know that the prayer part is really, really important, of course, but it is helpful to a chair one to have a little bit of help. It also continues the team piece of this, where I just believe the body of Christ is so beautiful in this process. So those are the chairs. Now for pre-time prep, I just want to throw this out there, right? Because there's been a little bit of confusion. So it's fine for someone on your team to reach out to the person ahead of time. But I just want to say that I don't believe this is necessary to do. We have a system in place that will already remind them of their prayer time a couple of different times. So it's not like they're going to forget. And if you're just trying to reach out and encourage them, I love that impulse so much. And that's who just most of us are. But if you choose to do that, here's a couple of guidelines. Number one, do not inundate them with text messages or emails. One person can say something on behalf of the team. This is not a communication forum for you, especially ahead of the prayer time. That can be uncomfortable for somebody, and you can disclose things that maybe you don't mean to, or push the prayer time, like the thoughts from that person in a specific direction, or get them thinking that something specific is a direction that we're headed. I know that sounds vague, but I just think less communicating on this at the front end is better. And here's the big one. Please do not send any form of songs or podcasts or videos or book recommendations or even scriptures, anything like that ahead of time. Number one, you don't know what that person is on the other side, what they know, don't know, who they follow, who they don't follow, what would they receive well and what might be off-putting to them. In addition, it sort of forms a pathway. If you're highlighting an idea or a theme or something ahead of time, it might do something in their head as far as forming what this prayer time might look like ahead of time. So I just, these are things I wouldn't have thought about. And again, I love the heart to encourage, but just learning some things along the way. So, all right, guys, love you. Hope you have an awesome day. And please remember to RSVP, and I'll see you soon.